In a world with entirely too many shows about cars, this is another pointless automotive podcast.
All right. Welcome back to another Pointless Automotive Podcast. Chadwick and Frank with you again for an episode we have taken zero notes on, and that's fantastic. No. And it's extremely late at night, so we're probably going to get a little whimsical, if you will.
Yeah, I've been huffing paint, so that's going to help, I think.
Mostly for me, it's like brake cleaner and engine degreaser.
Degreaser, so yeah.
Heavy stuff.
You got to degrease them lungs.
Going deep, baby. So this episode, I thought up a crazy idea, and we'll just kind of wing it, shoot from the hip, if you will. Woo. You hear a lot of talk about cars falling into two categories, whether it be a sports car or whether it be a grand tourer. And sometimes that line gets muddled, I think it's safe to say, because even with automakers, they don't know what they're making. And sometimes they aim for one objective and they fall somewhere short of that and maybe in the other camp entirely. So I just kind of wanted to have like a free for all where Frank and myself kind of talk about sports cars and grand tourers. And I think it's a very cool subject. And man, as we age, I kind of feel like I'm going into another camp than where I started out as, but we'll get to that later.
I don't know.
How about you, Frank? What's your take? How about this? Just the average.
What are these things? How do we describe these things?
The average man's. I want to hear the average man's take on what a sports car is, Frank. In general, can you present us with the sports car loose definition?
Yes, a sports car is a compromised machine that transports you places where the act from getting to point A to point B is not the actual purpose. Like getting you that's probably that's like the 1,000-foot definition, because like a Jeep Wrangler would probably fit that definition. But I would say all of those things, but like in a spirited manner, and that is like on road. I don't know. I'm trying to go as like broad and general as possible.
That is a broad. Speaking of strokes, that is a very broad stroke, my friend.
Yes, but to drill down from that, I sometimes wonder if a GT car, a grand tourer, is a very specific type of sports car, right? So like, for instance, like a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square. Like you can say a GT is a sports car, but a sports car is not necessarily a GT. I don't know. Well, maybe I'm getting out over my skis here.
Well, a physical descriptor, right? Like the traditional sports car, like the absolute boiled down sports car, is a 2-seater, 2-door, usually convertible, stripped down, no amenities, purely for sport driving. I think is how the original, absolutely hardliners will stick by that. It's not a sports car if it has a roof. It's not a sports car if there's more than 2 seats. I like to start there, and I think we massage some other qualities into that, and I think we've made some kind of concessions, if you will, to what can be allowed under that sports car umbrella, because I think you can have a fixed roof sports car. Yeah. I think that's the easiest.
I think time has moved. Right? I think time has moved to that. I think like that's back when you had like your touring coupe, and it was just like a convertible, or it's like that has moved on. What's your feeling on 4 seats?
That's getting a little gray. I think it's getting a little gray. I don't know. That's tough to say. I guess so, because you have to put the M cars in there, and they're kind of sports cars, sporty cars.
Ooh, maybe I would say an E30 M3 is certainly a sports car. That might, even though they were like in the touring car championship, like, okay, fine.
Yeah, definitely a motor sports car.
Sure. But I mean, I think based upon, and I would be willing to bet that most car clowns like ourselves, I think, would call it more of a sports car than a GT car. But I think almost every other, like not counting a clown shoe or a Z3 or Z4M, like or an M1 or 1M,
I think
They're all kind of GT cars. I think after that, I
no,
think
an
the only one that's a sports car.
E36 M3 CSL is definitely a sports car. That's the stripped down.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, that's definitely a sports car. But
But it's
I
like
agree.
based on a sedan chassis. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
I
I don't
mean,
know.
let's be honest. I mean, there was some of the original British sports cars were based on chassis of not sports cars. You know, whatever was built in
Right.
that shed. Um, but I think I'm less willing to give up the more than 2 seats. I think it needs to have 2 seats to be a sports car, except for a
So,
McLaren F1. It's not a sports
wait,
car.
well, like, so a standard M3 would not be really of any generation would not be a sports car.
I don't think not in the purest sense. No.
Okay.
Can you buy an M3 without AC or power steering or? I don't think you can. That's unless I think the CSL might be the purest.
Yeah,
one.
like super. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even then, that's like I struggle to call a car that's in such low production number, and that you have to spend so much money to get like a sports car because you can't drive it in a sports car fashion. I mean, if they made thousands of them, then like sure, I guess. But like, I don't know, it's tricky because
What about the Porsche 911? There's kind of a backseat.
Well, if you're saying
a vestigial
that's tricky,
backseat,
right? Because I would say the easy way to draw it is like 997 and earlier are sports cars. Anything 991, 992, the more modern stuff, when they got really extra large, would be the tour, like a GT car. But then if you're like, well, a GT3 and a GT2 doesn't have a back seat, so therefore, but I don't know, like it's hard. How about this? And I'll come back to the Porsche 911 land and offend many. But before we come back to it, does it have to be rear-wheel drive? Can you have a front or all-wheel drive sports car? Or does it have to be rear drive only?
Ooh, I don't know on that one. I think traditionally rear-wheel drive was the default or the de facto sports car drive setup, but
sure,
that's a good question. Like, ooh,
I want to say yes, but then I'm trying to think.
Can you name a 2-seater convertible that's front-wheel drive?
Mercury Capri?
Nope, they had a back seat.
Oh, they had a back seat.
No, whatever, dude. There's a back seat back there.
Other than that, Lotus Elan M100.
Didn't that have a little bench too in the back?
I don't think it did. I think it was just a 2-seater.
I don't know.
And then, which then became the Kia Elan.
Yes, often under celebrated Kia Elan.
That might be it. I don't know. The Kia Elan.
I think the Elan had a little teeny bench back there.
I gotta look it up. I'm gonna make for some bad radio and look it up while you discuss. I don't know, like pure, does it have to be rear-wheel drive? I almost lean to yes.
I mean, it kind of needs to. I don't know. Tough one. I mean, what's the only modern sports car for sale then? Like Miata?
Although
convertible rear-wheel drive 2-seater.
Although it pains me to try and call something like a whatever, the BRZ or whatever we're calling it now.
Like, that's got a real
not a sports car.
That's got a real back seat. How about a Z car, the new Z?
Yeah, but God, that feels like a GT car, doesn't it?
I know,
but it doesn't have a back seat.
It's true, but yeah, I don't know. The 240Z was definitely a sports car. The first original Z was,
I think
100% unequivocally a sports car.
I wonder though if
are you looking at Elan interior pictures trying to ascertain if there's a rear seat?
It is what I'm doing, but I'm trying to also
do one Google search at once.
In period, like did they?
I think the Elan did.
I'm looking. It definitely was a 2-seater. So that might be the only one. So in period, did they call that a sports car or a GT car? I think they probably called it a sports car.
The 240? Oh, 240. Yeah. I think the later, like the 280ZX, when they started to add like the feature creep and everything else, and a 2+2 setup, I think that became a Grand Tour.
What about like a 240 or 280 2+2?
No, back
seat. The exact same car that they stretched it. They made a back seat.
Backseat,
But then
baby.
they made it into they lengthened it by like 6 inches and added a back seat. Now it's
I just want to
gone
go
from a
over
sports
like
car.
I think we split the uprights. I didn't know too much about the Elan, and you were iffy on it. Had to Google it, but I was right about the
I
Capri.
mean, that feels like a sports car though, right? The
Right,
Elan.
but the people are so wrong about like what like when I sold my 300ZX twin turbo, so many people told me like, oh, I'd rather have a 2+2 turbo, and I'm like, we never got them in the States, and they're like, no, they definitely made them, and I'm like, no. So people
Well,
get upset over their back seats, even though that was one that also had a really non-functional back seat, almost
sure.
as bad as the Lexus SC430, which is like when your back,
Or
like the back of the front seat touches the thigh
yeah.
portion of the back seat, that doesn't count. That's
So
luggage.
question,
That's a
if the
luggage
back
rack.
seat if the back seat is completely unusable, is that then make it a sports car?
Oh boy, that's that's a tough question, especially with the SC430, right? Because without a doubt, Lexus tried to make it sporty, but it's a Grand Tourer at the end of the day.
That is, but I would say a Mark IV Supra has an aggressively unusable back seat, but I would
Mm.
not call that a sports car. I would call that absolutely a GT
Grand
car.
Tourer. Yeah. I don't know. And then, yeah, is it fixed roof or convertible? What are we going to argue about? Like
You got to
purists would say
argue.
convertible.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of GT cars that have a completely unusable back seat. I think there's
Yes.
GT cars that are only two seaters. Like this, like the modern Z, like the new Z. I think I would
Mm.
call that a GT car, like a Aston Martin DBS, which is like
Yeah.
this big honking V12 monster. I wouldn't call that a sports car. Especially it wasn't even available with a manual. Can you have an automatic sports car? Is that possible?
Oh, that's tough. I guess so. Because the Lotus, I'm sorry, Lotus, or the Alpha 4C, sorry. That
Sure.
only came with an auto, and that was definitely a sports car.
That's absolutely a sports car.
No grand touring aspirations at all. And
If
that's
you
where the water gets
yeah,
That's where it gets like kind of muddied. So we kind of beat up sports car like definition, connotation, whatever we want to decipher that. How about
yeah.
a grand tourer, Frank? What would you like throw out there for like what the hell's a grand tourer? And why isn't every car, why isn't a 1995 Chevy Cavalier four-door sedan a grand tourer?
I think it needs to be. And here's funny. I think a GT car, a
Yeah.
true GT car, is a two-seater, or sorry, a two-door.
Okay. Okay.
You got to have two doors. I don't care
Ooh.
if it's like shooting brake. That's like the boss, the final boss of the GT car is the shooting brake. But for what we're talking about here, it has to, yes, so it has to be a two-door. It needs to be able to carry straight line speed for a long time and not feel like it's going to be a suicide mission in doing so. And for me, when I think GT car, and maybe we'll flesh this out and you can tell me why I'm very wrong, I feel like it genuinely needs to be like properly heavy.
Oh.
Like for its period. Like maybe like in like maybe something that was a GT car in the 60s is now not a GT car, like wouldn't be considered today because it only weighs 2,700 pounds. But I think it needs to be like, oh, that is a kind of that's on the heavier side of things for one of that car in that era.
Yeah.
I think if you have a very light car like a BRZ, like I think that falls in between, right? Like we were talking, well, it's got a usable back seat and
Well,
but I would consider that a sports car.
I'm on board with your definition so far, except I think the mass of the vehicle is purely a byproduct of features because Grand Tourers need to be somewhat opulent and well featured. I think you can't have stripper Grand Tourers. I think Grand Tourers are usually laden down with luxury features like hand carved, maple
Sure.
from this one hill in this forbidden territory that two men lost their lives
The
trying to
Shire.
harvest. Yeah, mostly the Shire.
Yes. The Zone Rouge.
Gandalf, good man. But
Rest in peace.
seriously, it just I think the weight is a byproduct of that, and they tend to be sizable. Grand Tours tend to be a pretty large vehicle, so they're not a a miniature vehicle by any standard. So I think the weight's kind of just there. But the features, for sure, I think the features is something you have to call. I think a Grand Tourer needs to be opulent in the least. I think you got to have great seating surfaces. I think you need to have a suite of awesome features, and I mean really good quality materials makes a Grand Tourer. It can't be a cheap plastic laden interior and you call it a Grand Tourer. For me, I think
I'm trying to think of like a featureless GT car, because it's crazy. It's like I think if you get to a featureless GT car, you've just created a muscle car.
it's kind
of.
kind of.
It's an imperfect definition, but if you just like if you have some like GT car and you just rip all the features out of it and it's all bare bones, but it still has the heft and the carrying speed, kind of you just ended up with like a Challenger, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
well, originally muscle cars were just the same chassis with an engine from a much larger car stuffed in there. I think that was the original muscle car design,
and also
right?
like and also just like the traditional muscle cars, like the stripper model, right? Like
Oh yeah.
you have a Roadrunner, which is like a gutted Belvedere with like no options, like column shift, but a 440 with a 4 barrel.
Well, that was the cost, right? You don't get features, but you get this dope ass engine that you'd have to go for a much more expensive vehicle to get usually, and that was
Yeah,
the allure. I'd trade speed for like a leather seat any day.
that's right. I want both.
You can get it with a Grand
Chrysler,
Tourer.
the Chrysler 300B. You know, I want like the big all of it, like the GT, and that would be a GT car. Like you have a loaded up muscle car, now it's a GT car,
I
kind of.
yeah, I think yeah. I think power, like we're talking about it, I think power definitely is part of the equation for a GT car. I think especially
Yeah,
modern, like GT cars put massive, they might not be as fast and they're definitely not as fast as a sports car around a track, but they put down performance numbers like big horsepower, big torque, big curb weight, all these things kind of, I think that's an actual requirement for a Grand Tourer. I think we're there. We're ballpark. I mean, I think it's good to have a loose jurisdictional boundary around what these things are.
what
But
can
yeah,
can you have a 4-door GT?
hmm, I don't. I don't think that's traditional. I think you might have to do suicide doors or something to get away with it.
So Mazda, would you consider a Mazda RX-8 then
Absolutely
a
not.
GT? What is
No,
it? It's not a sports car, is it?
it's
It's got 4 doors
more
and 4 seats.
more of a sports car than a Grand Tourer for sure.
If you
100%.
if you LS swap it, does it become a GT car? If now it's putting that big power.
No, it becomes reliable.
Well, that's also true. Um,
More reliable. Yeah, dude, that's a tough one. But Grand Tourers, I don't know, man. Like, what's a modern sports car for sale? I think we named the Miata, and then the Z probably gets there. I think the Z is more
I
of
think
a.
it's a GT
I don't think
car.
it's opulent enough to be a GT car in the traditional sense.
I
And it's
I
got
don't know.
handling prowess. It's a sporty
So
looking
wait,
car, sporty driving.
does that make it a muscle car?
No,
Like a Japanese muscle car?
muscle cars have to handle like turd. I think that's a requisite. Like a
So
Camaro Z28 back in the day blurs the line between sports car and muscle car because it actually could handle.
how about Corvette? Corvette's a sports car, yeah.
Always been a sports car. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. No back seat. No Corvette back seat.
Can you have a mid-engine G like GT car?
Ooh, that'd be hard to do. That
Like
would be
well,
tricky.
there's the McLaren GT. It's in the
Yeah.
name. It's
You're
right
right.
there, man.
So is the
Or is that a
Pontiac.
supercar? Or is that a
The
supercar?
Pontiac Grand Am GT is not a Grand Tourer, you know.
Yeah, I think other than like modern 911, I'm gonna say GT cars got to be front engine.
Uh, the Cayman. Definitely Cayman's a sports car.
That's a sport. No, I'm saying GT car it needs to
Oh,
be front engine.
GT.
Because even that
Yeah.
McLaren GT, I'd call that like a supercar.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I think it does have to be front engine.
Especially since they almost always have to have 4 seats, and you had like the Mondial, which is probably about as close as to a mid-engine GT car as you're gonna get.
Yeah. So I think traditionally,
I don't
yeah,
know.
big power over the front of the car for sure.
What's the most GT car you've ever owned? Like out of all the things you've ever had, what would be the one that you've ever been? It's like, oh, this is the most GT car that I've ever GT'd.
I don't know if I've ever had anything that could be called a GT car out of the
Oh
60
man,
something, I think 70 now cars I've owned. I don't think I've had a GT car.
ever?
I don't think so.
Bro, that's it. We figured it out. We got to get you a GT car, my friend.
Should I haul up my list of cars? On the rip, I don't think so. I mean, yeah, shit boxes, but GT cars, I don't know, man.
How many I mean, the quintessential GT car is going to be like
It's gonna be European.
probably European, unless you're talking like Lexus SC, Supra. Oh, would your Stealth count? Would you consider your Stealth a GT car?
No, it's
Not
way
a sports car.
It's more sporty than GT for sure.
It's got, bro, that thing had features on features on features, man.
Well, that was just Mitsubishi in the early 90s, you know.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's your GT car.
I don't think
It
I've
had
owned
big
a lot
power.
of.
It was super heavy.
I haven't
It had every
owned.
possible tech feature for the era, really. It just because it didn't have Burlwood doesn't make it not a GT car.
Very non-functional backseat, though. Very non-functional.
Yeah.
Like, I would. It was carved out so you wouldn't like. So you could have a torso back there.
That's comfort.
No, there's it was the minimum to pass it as a seat. I've only owned. I haven't owned too much European stuff, and I've owned some nice European cars, but more sporty. Like my E46, definitely more sporty than Grand Tourer. The Cayman S more sporty than Grand Tourer for sure.
Wait, I thought all M3s were.
They're just not sports cars. No, it's not, dude. Not every car falls into the category.
That's it. Or muscle car. Okay, so the M3 is a muscle car. Got it.
Or
or a pedestrian commuter.
Yeah,
these are your choices. These are your choices.
And then we got trucks too, right? Like that Trooper's not a sports car.
Can you have a Grand Touring truck? Via Cross? Bentley Bentayga?
Probably a Via Cross Ironman edition. I'd say that's
with Burlwood. If you add some stick-on Burlwood to the interior.
If you don't, get the hell out of here. You better put it up there. Bro,
I think probably for me, close, except we're not counting it because it has 4 doors, would be the Jaguar, the 73 XJ. That's with totally a Chevy small block.
4-door car, though.
I know. That's what I'm saying. If it's no, they made 2-door ones.
They did
in the 70s. Yeah,
that's fair.
Like 76, which this was not. So probably Mark II, the collection of Mark II Supras.
Grand Touring?
Probably about his GT car. It was a GT car then. It was about 3,000 pounds. Sort of usable back seat. I mean, I grew up in the same back seat in a Celica, so it's childable. Smooth inline 6.
Well, I mean, does my Bonneville SSE Supercharged count? Because it was opulent, tons of features.
If you hot glued the back door shut,
sometimes they seized in place.
There you go. Yeah, we got to get you a GT car,
dog. Yeah, like a Bentley or something.
Yeah, we'll just get you a lemon laud XJR or something.
Rose. Remember when XKRs were pretty cheap? I remember XKRSs. Those are cool looking, but they're hard to.
Those are dope. You get that what is it, like the French blue color with the big wing
hood vents on top of it,
like 505 horsepower or something like that. I bet you can get a decent one for like
20.
Ooh, I don't know about that low. Probably not.
They used to go for like 15 to 20 all day when they bottomed out.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I never bottom out, but that's just me. Yeah, I think the second gen Supra is the closest I'm getting to GT land.
Boy.
Yeah, I don't know. That's it. Hey, you know what you could get as a good GT car? You want to buy a turbo 924 behind me? No? Sure. The hood's still up.
It's looking like it's holding its territory very well.
It's in service position, which is what it does best.
Does Porsche make a Grand Tour? The Panamera is their closest, probably.
No, 911. I'd say a modern 911. Absolutely.
Dude, I don't think it's a Grand Tour.
Especially like a base. They're big. They are.
Yeah,
big.
I think the Panamera is bigger, and it
is, but it's a 4-door.
Has the engine in the front. Yeah, but I think we have to. Maybe we have to give up the door count for modern GT cars. Because there's not a lot of like hyper like nice 2-doors anymore. Didn't Lexus try to do that with the RC, but they made it more sporty?
Kind of. That's this. It's not thing is not sport. The RC isn't sporty, nor is it a GT car. It's
The
just kind of a
LC, however,
LC 500 is absolutely a GT
Grand
car.
Tour.
It's like
Yeah.
probably the most GT car on the market right now,
It is. I'd give it to it. Yeah.
rather than like
Unless
a
you're talking
Bentley
like,
Continental GT,
yeah, I was just gonna say, or a Rolls
Flying
Royce.
Spur. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Other than that,
but here's the thing: there's also not that many like high-powered, high-speed, opulent sedans. I mean,
no.
you can go like S class or whatever, and you can go 7 Series, and nobody would say either of those are GT cars. They're just like opulent luxury things.
Yeah.
So you'd only have like maybe Panamera, maybe I don't even. Does Jaguar even make a sedan still? Can you still get an XK
XE,
or XE?
XE. But
Well,
that's
the XE was like their smaller one, I
yeah,
think.
that was like a 3 Series competitor.
Yeah, which was
XK and XF, they made those kind of recently, didn't they? The XF was
yeah. Well, and then the F. Well, and then the F Type. F Type is where is that? Because those are actually smaller than you think. Because you think it'd be a GT car,
they're
but it's got
smaller
two
than you
seats.
think, but they're heavier than you think too.
They are, but you can get a You can get a four banger one.
You can get a
Does that
four
make it a
banger.
sports? Does that make it a sports car?
Oh,
If it's a 4-cylinder F Type,
well, you can get topless too.
you can.
Do those have a back seat?
No, they're
Hmm.
2-seaters only. I think they're sports cars. I think those are.
That's definitely a sports car
I
then.
think we're going sports car. Even
Sports
if
car.
yeah, sports car.
Even though it's a porky sports car.
Even though it's a Jaguar. Jag.
Mm.
Yeah, Audi TT's dead, right?
Yeah, that'd be that's a hard one to place too.
Yeah,
Definitely not.
R8 is probably barely like exotic.
Yeah, it's kind of a sporty car. I think
That's
it's
like
like the
a tier above.
aspirations. Dude, I think the aspirations of the car. If it's meant to go around corners, I tend to put it towards sports car camp. If it's for highway cruising at high speeds and comfort, I put it more in the grand touring camp. And that's kind of how I break it down in my mind.
Well, if that's the case, then I think an R8 would be a GT car. Because I mean, yeah, you can take that. And you're like, that's so much freaking car to put on like a back road.
Yeah, it's a sports car. I think the R8's more of a sports car.
See, I would call it just like a supercar.
It's
entry level supercar.
It kind of, I guess, in the sense that the old NSX was a supercar. But yeah,
What's the new NSX?
it's still a supercar.
Okay,
100%. Yeah, 100%.
wouldn't be GT car, wouldn't be sports car.
No, definitely not GT. And too expensive. And yeah,
What if you put a rooftop tent on the top, so then you've got more room?
What if you wrap it around a telephone pole and repair it in your backyard?
Yeah, you can do that. Sports car. What if it? What about like a hopped up CUV? So you've got like your Urus or your what's the Audi one? SQ8 or any of those? Like,
oh yeah, no, those are
where
more.
it's like they have the ground clearance of just a regular ass car.
Yeah,
But
it's
they're
ridiculous.
just porky. Yeah,
those are definitely more towards grand tours, I'd say. But sporty to me has always been like stripped down, lighter weight, and like I said, just about getting around. Think of handling prowess. That's just how I do it, man. I just think of it like that.
Metro is almost there.
It had zero handling performance. My favorite thing about the Metro.
You know what was worse than the handling?
What?
The brakes.
Yes.
You go like three turns and it's like they're on fire.
Worse than both of those was looking back every 5 seconds to make sure the fucking soft top holder didn't become like
a little boot thing would.
Oh god, dude. But anyway, like I took that to my favorite road where I do all my tests, and I've driven a lot of Miatas up there, and I'm like, holy shit! I'm going down the road, I'm rowing my gears, I'm top down. Am I in a Miata? The very first corner, and the freaking car just rolls.
Tires.
Horrible feel. Not a sports car. Not at all.
No, like that. I had the same reaction too. I took it on my little twisty road near me, which is not a fast road. It's very much a slow road. So you're like, oh, this car will work here. No,
it's horrible.
No, it's yeah.
It's like one of those convertibles, dude, where they chopped off the roof and didn't care about extra reinforcement. So somehow it has the handling prowess of the like worse than a Geo Metro, which is already like got low marks across the board.
Well, yeah, because it's not like they cut it off of like a 3-box like sedan or coupe. They chopped it off of a hatchback.
Yeah.
a disposable hyper lightweight hatchbacks. It's just
No subframe
doomed,
reinforcement. Yeah.
doomed from day one. Um, so I assume probably in your camp the most sportingest thing you've ever owned is Team Miata, right?
For a pure sports car, probably. I
Yeah.
mean, I've owned a lot of sports cars, but yeah, I'd say like the purest, probably a Miata.
Yeah.
How about
Manual
yourself?
everything.
Yeah,
I
manual
mean,
everything.
maybe
Topless.
S2000. Z3. I mean, Boxster. Early Boxster, I think, is the most sporting of the Boxsters because it's like
Yeah.
not big on power. The weight distribution is perfect.
True two-seater, topless.
Yep.
Rear wheel drive.
What do you think? What do you think? 986 Boxster is more sports car than S2000
Oh, that's tough to say.
in a vacuum?
It's tough to say. Maybe.
It might be.
It's kind of a little more pure. Hydraulic steering?
Yeah, instead of the EPS and the.
Oh, that's a good question. Mid-engine.
That might anger people. Yeah, you get the mid-engine.
I don't know.
I think
the Boxster is more of a sports car. I think
you're right.
I think so.
That's it. Which is weird. I don't know. I feel like that's like controversial, but yeah, I think that is it.
I think it is. I would say that
it's more sporting.
The S2000 is definitely a sports car, but yeah, I think the Boxster is more of a pure sports car experience. Yeah.
A sports car
and mid-engine. So there's that. Let's ask the you know what we haven't done for a while? Magic.
We haven't done an 8-ball. We've done lots of PCP. We've done very few 8-balls.
Is the Boxster more of a sports car than an S2000?
Ooh.
Ask again later.
Oh, okay. We're getting like a
don't rush the 8-ball. Let me polish
no, no, it's a cliffhanger. It's good.
Same question.
What? You're rushing the 8-ball?
It is certain.
Okay.
Just needed some time to get with its thoughts. So
warmed up. All right.
You heard it, guys. Boxster, true sports car. S2000.
Nope, garbage bin. It's a GT car now. It's been confirmed.
One or the other.
It's a GT car or it's a muscle car.
Frank, do you have a quiz to give to me? I have a feeling there's one about.
I do. And you know what? Maybe there would be debate on what the definition of this car is.
Oh,
stay tuned to find out.
That's a hint. So. I'll explain. This is, in case you didn't know, this awesome buildup of excitement. This is our automotive print ad quiz game show that we do on a weekly basis, guys, where we read through an automotive print ad, usually from a magazine or some other periodical of the time, omitting any information that gives the ad away. In this case, I will be guessing while Frank reads the ad. I have 3 guesses and only 3 guesses to figure out what vehicle he's talking about. We try to get the year in there and trim models for bonus points. But if I miss anything, I can ask for help, and he can help me out with some really nice, usually even misleading, if you will, advice to throw me a loop. So here we go. I have 10 minutes on the clock once, and I will reset that. I will shut my laptop. Frank, I am ready for you to unleash this week's quiz on me.
All right. So this one is I like this format. It's like a 2-pager. The car is in the middle, pointing straight at us, and then the text is like waterfalled around the side.
Oh,
at the very top, and it's just in a white void background.
Okay.
At the top of it, it says, "The opposite of a Quaalude." Yes, the drug.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Making sure. Do you occasionally feel sluggish?
You skipped the angle of the car.
It's just face. It's face on.
Okay. Straight head on. Okay.
Yep. Applied directly to the forehead. Yep. The opposite of a Quaalude. Do you occasionally feel sluggish, out of touch, a little insecure? Perhaps it's your car. Your car may not inspire confidence, especially when driven at highway speeds. This thought led blank engineers to an important discovery. They call it the high-speed cabin, an environment that, and bear with me, the only copy I could find is like heavily pixelated, and I couldn't find a better one, so I might do some squinting here.
Okay.
An environment that balances the perception of speed with total comfort and absolute control. The experience is absolutely intoxicating. It's the basis of a design for the new blank. They began by lowering the hood line. This helps improve your visibility. while at the same time lowering aerodynamic resistance. The window area was increased by 20% to provide a more sweeping view, and the glass fits even more flush to the body, again for improved aerodynamics.
Mm.
With improved visibility, the need for a new engine became clear, one that would fit under the new lower hood
Oh.
and offer greater performance. The engineers developed an all-aluminum double overhead cam engine with 16 valves. It uses Blank's programmed fuel injection and has a new intake manifold design. Horsepower is up by more than 20%. There is a new optional 4-speed electronically controlled automatic transmission with a responsive sport shift mode. You'll find their efforts particularly satisfying when accelerating onto a busy highway. The Blank doesn't lag when you need to get out in front. Now, turning their attention to the suspension, they placed our double wishbone system on all 4 wheels. The handling is exceptional. It's the same design that has been used for years on race cars. For obvious reasons, power-assisted disc brakes are used on the front and rear wheels. The front discs are vented for better heat dissipation and reduced fading. Next, a careful study was made on the interior. By just shifting the driver's seat ever so slightly, the foot pedals were better positioned. The seat and the steering column adjust to positions that are to that actually is what it says. The seat, it says it twice, and steering column adjust to positions that are humanly possible.
That's good. I look for that
all,
in a car.
but they achieve human possibilities.
Oh, okay.
And the seats remember the positions. We've moved the power antenna to the rear. It's mounted beside the trunk lid and automatically raises and lowers when you turn the radio on or off. Other considerations for comfort were studied and should be experienced. For example, air conditioning and power-operated sunroof. Standard, of course. Now, don't you feel better? Sir,
That's
I
it,
give you
huh?
a wordy drug double entendre laden
Yeah, leaning into that.
print ad. Yeah, the experience is absolutely intoxicating.
Should I put get my phone? Nope. Let's do
Yeah.
10.
That's it.
Oh,
What are your thoughts, good sir?
10 minutes on the clock. Okay. So you gave me some pretty good stuff. Didn't give me like a displacement or what wheel drive or how many doors. Dual overhead cam.
Yep.
Double wishbone.
Yep.
Were the big takeaways.
All aluminum double overhead cam.
That's huge.
16 valves.
Right. So that's
programmed
huge.
fuel injection.
And that's the giveaway to me because I know exactly who uses that. And I'm not going to milk it too long. But also, like, the ad is greatly hinting towards this being a second generation of something that's a huge departure from the original. And I think this was like a really good, we talked about this before, like sophomore album for a car, for a nameplate. And I think this was like one of the best ones. So I know program fuel injection comes from our Japanese friends Honda. I know that I believe it says it on the engine. Doesn't it say program fuel injection PFI? I'm just going to shoot my shot because I know what this bad boy is.
Oh, do you?
Or at least I'm 95% sure it is a. I'm going to get the year right though. 1987, 1986, 1987. Honda Prelude SI. That's my final answer.
The opposite of a Quaalude.
Because it rhymes too.
Is the basis of the design for the new Honda Prelude SI. However, sir, you are off by a generation.
This is a third generation Prelude. Yes. But am I right on the year? 87? 80?
88 was the first year of the
Okay.
third generation. 87 was the second gen. And you said the
Yes.
sophomore album, which I think I knew what
Sorry.
you meant because you aren't like me, because I really like the first gen Prelude, even though everyone forgets it exists
I
and hates
don't
it
think it's I
because it's
think that
terrible.
this one was such a big improvement over the first and second gen.
Yeah, yeah, where you had, you got rid of the twin Nightmare carbs on the second gen,
Yep.
and
Different
just
suspension setup that didn't have a double wishbone.
so I drove one of these today. That's why that's part why we're um, recording so late. It was the yellow one that you saw at Radwood. I went and did a photo shoot
Oh.
with it. It's a yellow, which is what the color is in this ad.
In the ad, you can barely read.
It's Bahama yellow. Yeah, it's very. I
I
had to
can't wait
hunt.
to try to find this ad and then put it on the video.
Yes, I mean it's easy. I mean, yeah, but what it didn't mention in this ad was the available four-wheel steering, and the one I drove does have four-wheel steering.
Was that only on the later ones or was it on the early ones?
It
It
was
was on the
on.
early ones too?
It was this 88 that I drove. It's the
Had
same.
it.
It's a mirror of the one in this car. It's a five-speed manual with the four-wheel steering.
Okay.
Bonkers how
You could feel it.
aggressive the four. Oh, because it at low speeds. So at above, I don't know what speed, but like at whatever speed, like when you do like light input into the steering wheel, you only turn like say 10 degrees off center either way, which would be how you would turn at speed. They turn the wheels turn the same direction.
Mm,
So like in the wheels will be parallel
right.
as you turn. When you crank it more, the rear wheels will then kind of tuck back in and then go the opposite direction.
Sure.
So so if you're locked to lock, if you just go like make a U-turn, you can make a U-turn almost in a single lane.
That's
It's
I
bananas,
love
and
that
it's
four-wheel
super
steering.
aggressive.
I
It's
love
like
that
the first time I did
too.
it, it just whips. It's bizarre. I hadn't driven it, and then I drove it, and I was just like, I just went into a middle of an intersection and just did like whoop 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 whoop, just was driving in circles like an idiot because it was the most giggly
Now, that's
party
what
trick I've ever felt.
Mercedes does that on their modern four-wheel steering, making it for parking lot speeds. Now, Mitsubishi's was super weird, like on the Galant VR4, which kicks in over 35 miles an hour. So when
Correct.
you're in a corner in the canyons and you're right on that line, 35 or above, sometimes you have to
Yeah,
put
it'll go
more
whoop.
steering input. Sometimes you have to put less because you tighten. Let's punching my mic out here. The steering tightens because you're
Yes.
going 37 and you have to readjust your line. It's the most annoying thing. I love the Prelude one. I like that, makes so much sense because you want more steering when you're going slow.
And what's it made me think like if you were on like a low speed, like very tight twisty road, like a coastal road where you've got like hairpins and stuff, I think it might suddenly be like it completely opened my eyes. Like it might suddenly be the most like best sneaky slow car fast thing ever because you can take it on a back road and just like you don't even have to be going fast at all, but just like it's like you're just kicking the ass end out. Even that's what it feels like, but it's not. It's completely planted. It's so bizarre.
Can we like
It's
take a moment to realize, like, especially, I think this is definitely the first sporty Prelude that in a world before the S2000, the Prelude was the Honda badged sports car in this
it was their
country. And
flagship. Yeah, it was their fun flagship
boy,
car
they
up
had some
until
cool performance like you named it, dual overhead cam. You had
yep.
you had double wishbone, which is like good luck finding that today, even right on a very advanced sporty car,
Yep.
and nothing short of a sports car gets double wishbone. And it's just the Prelude had all this and the sunroof, and it looked nice, and it looked.
What was it a prelude to? Honda no longer making sports cars? Like what?
Yeah, that's it. Well, the S2000 was took its place, and
Yeah, but what do we have
damn,
now? We've got something that's the size of like last generation Honda Accord that's like
Civic.
fast and fun and cool. Yeah, the Civic Type R and like
God,
the
I think
SI is like a cool little like fun little sedan, but they're big now. Like a Civic is like a big
yeah,
car,
it's a huge car. Yeah, yeah.
huge.
Dude,
It's
have you
big.
seen
It's
a
true.
Rav4 lately? Rav4s are like Land Cruisers. It's
What
freaking
do you think I rap
ridiculous.
for? To push
What's
a
that?
fucking Rav4? Oh,
Huh?
sorry. I forgot.
Eh,
We've canceled Kanye.
perfect.
Um, the yeah, I Prelude, but you have to find a way to get self behind the wheel of one of that third gen Prelude, because in the fourth gen you can still get four wheel steering, but it's much more like all the other four wheel steerings where it's electronically controlled. It's like the Galant, doesn't work at low speeds and only works at high. You have to. It's so bizarre.
Can I be honest
It's
with you though? If I
huge.
get a modern Prelude, I'm getting the non SH. I'll get the because the same power. The non. I want the loud edition.
That's right. Noise, boys. Well,
let's do some
sir,
PCP to celebrate
we
that.
should do that. That's exactly what we should do.
Follow up our Quaaludes.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, we should. We need uppers for our downers. How about do you have any downers on the stuff you've been working on lately, or is it all uppers on your end?
Uppers for sure. So I've been. You can see the Trooper behind me. It's undergoing some open heart surgery, valve cover gasket, spark plugs, air filter, that kind of stuff. When I took the valve cover off, dude, pleasant surprise the other day. First off, the valve cover was definitely leaking. It was like super rigid, started to become hard plastic. That's time to get it out of there, dude. This thing, so these are known for eating head gaskets. This has 283,000 miles on it. So
head gasket's going nowhere. It's a veteran.
I took the valve cover off, dude, and it's brand new. Those heads, the head, sorry, four cylinder, the head was probably replaced. It can't have more than a few thousand miles on it.
Wow.
Did I send you a photo? I posted one up. Dude, check it out.
Let's go back and look.
I posted on my gram. It looks like a brand new car. Like you got to see 283,000 miles. You're going to be gold. Best case scenario. Yeah. Usually you're going to have some built up crusty oil, dark brown in there. Yeah, you look it up, dude. It's freaking brand new. I could probably awkwardly hold the
Oh yeah.
We could do that for good. That's good video. If you're not watching,
it's even better audio.
There's a picture of a diarrhea I took earlier and sent it to my brother-in-law, but I don't want to show you that. That's
unfortunate for everyone.
Oh
yeah, look at that. That is, yeah, it's
283,000 miles. I don't think so.
Not that, yeah.
The whole head has been replaced. So, yeah, when you buy a $2,000 truck, that's a good surprise.
Heck yeah. So, it costs somebody $2,000 just to do that.
At least, yeah, right. Yeah. If they didn't do it themselves, so that's cool. Still got to put everything back together. New. Oh, the plugs too. So it had new wires, new NGK wires. And let me warn you guys that if you see new wires, that doesn't mean new plugs. The plugs I took out were at least 10 years old, at least. So I think it was one of those old school mechanic guys that just doesn't replace something if it's not broken. You hear the stories like, oh, I replaced the plugs, now it runs like shit. I bought the OEM plugs. So the same ones I pulled out were OEM. So they look like they were pretty old. So this thing's got to idle a little better. Whenever you do plugs on an old truck, it just seems to fix the idle a little bit, smooths it out.
Happy.
It does.
Happy some
truck.
attention.
Well, that's all I got for PCP, man. Like cool stuff, like super happy. Old spark plugs, but I'll take that for a brand new head. I mean, that's
excellent.
Winner, dude.
Yeah, I'm not a winner over here.
Setback City?
Well, sprinting in place. So I put some time into. I'm like, look, if I'm gonna start chipping away at this heap of steel that I have over here.
Sure.
Let's just start with this here Civic. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, yeah.
So in order to properly sell the Civic, I've got two things that are going on. One is the AC compressor that like you turn it on and the clutch goes like it clicks super loud. Still works. But it's noisy and terrible. So I got a replacement one. I got to put it in there. I don't have an AC machine. So it's like, I might just farm that job out. It's kind of in a pain in the junk spot, but I don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on a car and not recoup it because I'm only going to get like $3,000 for the car or whatever's going to happen.
Right.
So I might be able to just sell it, be like, hey guys, like this thing is basically rattled since I've owned it. I put like 12,000 miles on this car. It's probably going to get worse. It's going to have to be replaced one day. Good news. I already have the part. Here it is. Deal with it when you have to. Until then, enjoy noisy but cold air conditioning. What I can't do is sell it with the check engine light, which is on for evap solenoid. It's P2420, which is evap solenoid. Evap purge valve stuck shut is what that is. And so without getting super lost into the woods, which I was for quite some time on this car. So this is a hybrid with California emissions car, which is all the diagrams and everything I can find for this car are non-hybrids. And then beyond that, anything I then later did find videos and whatever. I couldn't find any videos for a hybrid. I found a diagram. It was for 49 state emission car, which this one is not, and they're all different. Like these are all, it's a specific.
Real quick, Frank, to clear this up for everybody listening, a federal versus a California hybrid, that gets, the California one gets lower fuel economy, makes slightly less pollution, but
Less
you heard
NOx.
that, right? Less miles per gallon.
Less is more. Okay.
Uses more fuel.
Less
Go ahead.
is
I
more.
get the logic. I'm following.
Yeah, it's
California,
failed, but you know what? So I eventually track it down. It's under the car. I put it up on service ramps. I have to pull there's a big like hybrid battery gas tank protector on the bottom. I pull all that up. I fish it out. I eventually find a part number on the solenoid. I wiggle it out. I call the place down the street and they have it. They're like, hey, we can get, well, they don't have it, but they're like, we can actually get it. It's whatever it was. It's $138 for the solenoid. I go, okay, well, I didn't have any leads. I couldn't find my test leads. And I'm like, well, before I have you order something and do all the stuff, let me just test the solenoid. So I jump into 12 volts and click, 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 click. It's doing exactly everything it should be. Like, well, the solenoid, it certainly isn't stuck shut. When it's resting, it's open. And the fault is for stuck shut, which means it's sensing pressure. So this car sat for a little before I got it. It was like, okay, maybe there's spider web stuck in something somewhere. It's not letting the pressure build up too high. It's making it think the purge valve is stuck shut when it's not. Purge valve is open just fine. So okay, so I get like compressed air and I blow everything out. I have the charcoal canister out. I clean it all up. I blow all the lines out back to the tank. Everything. Put it all back together. I said, all right, well, like let's see. Take it on a test drive. Nope. Boink. There's the check engine light again. So the only thing I can think of is there is a pressure, even though like I found that the factory diag stuff, like the factory diagnosis process for at the Honda dealership. I found that whole process, which of course is like you have to plug your Honda data link system into it and do the calibration, and then what it spits out will tell you. And it's like, well, I can't do that. So I think maybe there's a pressure sensor, a tank pressure sensor on the top of the charcoal canister, which means I have to fish it all out again. And so maybe it's that, maybe the sensor's bad. And so it's sending the ECU that there's pressure in the tank when there's no pressure in the tank because the valve's working fine and everything should be blown out.
Tune in next week when Frank gets lost down this rabbit hole.
He burns himself horrifically.
God.
Dealing with a tank pressure sensor. I don't know. But it's annoying, and it's all for the great state of California to tell me my car's not going to pass smog when it blows.
Cash for clunkers. Let's go.
Whatever. I mean, a tree, like basically a whole bunch of trees and stuff blew on it, and I already got kind of almost cashed out from that. So either way, I'm grumpy about it, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. And you should probably.
Yeah, let's close it down. Let's on that beautiful note. I want to thank you guys for stopping by and listening, checking us out if you're watching. Also, thanks for that. You can follow along anywhere you listen to your podcast. Definitely rate and review our episodes. Leave us any feedback. We appreciate that. Watch us on YouTube. You can watch the video version of these podcasts. We load those up the same day. Yeah, we load those up the same day we release the audio version. But again, thanks again for checking us out, guys. We really do appreciate it. And Frank, where can the good folks follow you for your personal works?
Oh, definitely just creeping around the woods at night looking for sleeping woodland creatures to fuel my rage. But beyond that,
and explain how you extract the fuel, but let's go with it.
Exactly. No, exactly. With my mouth. The photographer's garage on most of the things. I'm not on what's the new tweeter? What are we calling this?
TikTok?
No. What do the kids call it with their hula hoops and their Dan Fogelberg? No, what's the Facebook Twitter? Threads.
Nothing toxic. What is it? Nothingtoxic.com?
Something rotten.
Something something awful. Yeah.
Something awful. That's what it was. Rotten.com. Don't go there. I don't know.
Or go there.
Speaking of something awful, where can people find what you're up to?
It's absolutely atrocious. Shitboxery mostly. YouTube, Auto Obsessive Garage, rescues, restorations, and reviews, sometimes on Instagram. But again, guys, closing this one out. We'll catch you guys next week. Thanks again. And we love you. Take care.
We love